Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Lovallo, and this is an edition of Baseball Discourse. On September the 7th, 2023, I caught up with the voice of the Binghamton Rumble Ponies, Jacob Wilkins. We talked about the improved Double-A affiliate of the New York Mets, a club that went into contention in the second half of the season and is on the verge of qualifying for the playoffs. In fact, by the time you listen to my interview with Jacob, they would probably have qualified for the playoffs. But anyway, the fact of the matter is we had a conversation with Jacob, and not only did we record this interview, but we recorded it before Yonder Suarez pitched a no-hitter, 7-inning no-hitter against the Hartford Yard Goats. So anyway, enjoy my interview with the voice of the Binghamton Rumble Ponies, Jacob Wilkins, here on Baseball Discourse. We are pleased to be joined by the voice of the Rumble Ponies, Jacob Wilkins. And, well, Jacob, this has been a transformative Binghamton club from the first half to the second half. Not only are you in contention, if the season were to end today, you'd make the playoffs. How much did the trades the Mets made, particularly at the deadline, impact this particular ball club?
Well, Dan, thanks for having me on. Great to be with you guys. You know, it was a game changer. This was a team that was scrappy in the first half. They had some players who were really fun to watch. Matt Rudick, J.T. Schwartz, who was in the series here in Hartford in April, had a couple of home runs. But certainly it was a different type of team than the big three of last year that you saw, Beatty, Alvarez, Mauricio. And obviously they've graduated to Flushing along with even Mark Vientos from a few years ago. Who knew when Justin Verlander made that rehab start for us earlier in the year that he wouldn't be on the team come the trade deadline? And so once the first shoe dropped with Scherzer being traded that brought back Luis Angel Acuna, you thought, wow. But I think still there wasn't an expectation, and obviously we're not privy to those discussions, that Justin Verlander would be traded, and that brings back Drew Gilbert. And one of the trades that really was just, if you were a Mets fan, you're certainly following along closely, but Jeremiah Jackson coming in the deal that sent Dominic Leone to the Angels, a Mets reliever. And I think getting that return, at least from what we've seen, is incredible. So Acuna, obviously not just a top prospect in the Ranger system, but certainly the name recognition. People think of Ronald and are intrigued. Matt Levine, my broadcast partner, and I were talking about that. Gilbert is a guy that plays, many have described it, including Billy Epler with his hair on fire. He also was a first-round pick last year out of Tennessee. So he comes here. Ryan Clifford, who also came in that trade, has really had a great start to his Mets organizational tenure in Brooklyn. And then Jackson, as I mentioned, has been sort of the third piece. And J.T. Schwartz was out for over 60 games due to injury. So it was almost like a midseason addition to bring him back into the fold. He started on a tear, especially after having not played for so long, and you see he's a steady presence in this lineup. So the offense has totally changed over. The pitching was always there. Now you have Kevin Parada coming up, and it makes for sort of a super team.
You know, it's interesting because Gilbert was the number one ranked prospect in the Houston organization, and obviously the Mets traded Verlander for him. He goes to number two as far as the Mets ranked prospects, and Acuna is now the number one prospect, and the Mets got him for Max Scherzer. But my goodness, the attention on Acuna, he hit 2 home runs last night, and it generated a lot of buzz on social media. Talk about the attraction that the fans have to Acuna.
Oh, I think it's amazing with all these guys. And again, just because of the Mets being out of the playoff race, Mets fans are hungry to take interest in these players because the Mets publicly have said, this is our future. We are investing to have a steady farm system, a farm system that produces major league talent, and then we will add the free agent acquisitions around that rather than the other way around. And that's come up from Billy Epler to Steve Cohen consistently. And so I'm amazed with, and we're appreciative, of course, of the coverage that SNY has given us in terms of people are following these games. And, you know, we just call the games, and you don't alter the way you call it. But we're certainly aware of it. I also think another measure of the attention that this team has gotten has been when we were down in Somerset and the media came for sort of a de facto media day. And there were reporters from every major New York outlet that took time on a Mets game day to come out to Somerset and speak with 6 of our guys. The 3 I mentioned, Acuna, Gilbert, and Jackson, and then 3 pitchers, Christian Scott, Blade Tidwell, Dom Hamill, they spoke with after the game, and Tyler Stewart. So the interest from the reporters and the media outlets that cover the Major League Club has been remarkable.
You worked for the #1 sports radio station and the #1 station in New York City, and the mindset has always been the New York sports fan will never put up with a rebuilding ball club. What's your viewpoint on that?
Yeah, I never saw it that way. I don't think, to use the Rockies as an example, because we brought them up during the broadcast last night, or I did, 5 years without a playoff appearance. I don't know if that's going to fly in New York. But I think whether, I'm an FAN or not, you can see, and I was at FAN during that time, when the Yankees in 17, Mark Teixeira retired, A-Rod stepped away, and they brought up Judge, Tyler Austin, Glaber, all these guys. And obviously it hasn't panned out exactly the way everyone wanted, but there was still immense interest, and I think you're starting to see the columns have come out in the New York papers. Hey, watching the Mets and Yankees is fun again because of the excitement of the players that are both in the farm system and that have been brought up. So, for instance, Matt put this together. The first 4, a couple days ago, was the first time that the 4 baby Mets had all been in the lineup together. Alvarez, Beatty, Mauricio, Vientos. They were 6 through 9. And that gives Mets fans something to invest in, something to find hope in. And I think when you have a plan and you can put out that vision coherently that we may not be competing now, but here is our long-term future, New York fans are knowledgeable. They're savvy. You think back to the Yankees and the homegrown players that fans fell in love with during their championship run. You think of Mets teams that had wonderful homegrown players dating back to Doc and Darryl in the 80s. Fans can get behind that, and I think Mets fans have.
Well, Jacob, it's interesting because the thought process was the Mets farm system is barren, but, I don't look at it that way. You just mentioned some of those players who were in the lineup the other night. Then you see Alvarez, obviously Alonso, obviously McNeil. And, the mindset was, well, they replenished the farm system when they traded away Scherzer and Verlander and Leon. But I don't know, they might have augmented the farm system, but I don't view it as the farm system having been barren. How do you see it?
No, I didn't. Yeah, it's funny when I never viewed it as barren to begin with. Obviously, and there's rankings, and I am not involved in don't know the exact formula that goes into the calculation. But Jose Butto last night pitched for the Mets, 6 innings, and he was a guy that we saw here last year. Nasty changeup. He's developed a slider. Really excited. You get to know these guys, and Jose is a great guy. To see him achieve some success, he had struggled a little bit this year. Mike Vassell is a guy at AAA that folks have been wanting to get a shot, and the Mets are going to be obviously judicious in making sure that he's in a position to succeed, but he was dominant with us earlier in the year. Dom Hamill has been with us all year. You look at Scott, these were not guys that were acquired in trades, getting up to 97, 99 last night. So I think that the pitching has certainly been there. And again, I get it. It's different to dominate at AA than to be ready in a big spot in the major leagues. But again, a Matt Rudick type player, to go back to him, and he's a scrappy but good on base guy that's been compared to Jeff McNeil. I never viewed it as barren, and when you're around these guys, you're around them every day, and you see guys that might not be at the top of lists, but that you say, hey, that guy's got the right mindset, he's got the intangibles, he's got the skills to have a big league future.
Talking with the voice of the Binghamton Rumble Ponies, Jacob Wilkins. Jacob, how many seasons is this for you as Rumble Ponies voice?
This will be season 4, 19, 21, 22, 23, with 20, obviously, the COVID year. Came here in 2019 after the great Tim Hyman, and each season has been unique, so it's really cool. It's flown by.
So, what's your dream? I mean, as I said, you were at the number one radio station in New York City, and you leave to go broadcast minor league baseball. What's your dream?
Well, it sounds like a guy that has no career direction. It sounds like an absolute train wreck when you put it that way, Dan. No, what happened was I was certainly very happy with what I was doing, anchoring at FAN and CBS Sports Radio and Sirius XM in New York, and I was always doing play-by-play. But I always wanted to do play-by-play was always the goal. And this is totally transparent with the folks I was working for there. They knew that. And it was wonderful, and I never took for granted having that big market experience. But there came a time where it was, let's not just try to hope that there's a leaping jump here from a big market to doing play-by-play, but doing play-by-play in the most consistent way. And that would bring me more joy on a day-to-day basis. And so that was the impetus in looking and being interested in something like this. And still for how it came about and came together, I could have never dreamed it like this. And so, yeah, now you can – I always felt obviously the long-term goal is to be a major league broadcaster, to do games at a network level across multiple sports. And I wanted to give it my best shot. I certainly didn't want to say, you know what, I worked at these big stations, but I never did the play-by-play full-time and sort of be regretful that way. And it's been everything and more.
Well, we're looking forward to hearing you on that level, but we also enjoy your broadcasts now. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us.
It's my pleasure, Dan. Thank you.